Hi, I'm Crystal McDonough. I'm with McDonough Law Group, and I'm here with Mark Summers, who is our estate planning and succession planning attorney. Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, thanks, Crystal. Um, Mark Summers. I've been practicing in Colorado since 2006, primarily on Colorado's western slope. Um, been doing estate planning and business planning for the entirety of my career.
Now, we have estate planning attorneys that we work with all over the country as well, right?
Yes, yes, we do.
Okay, so let's just dive right in here. Today, we're specifically focusing on estate planning for professionals. So, w- what professionals are we talking about? Who are we talking about here?
We're talking mostly about attorneys, doctors, therapists, anybody that is dealing with client information, especially confidential client information, who within their business needs to follow some kind of protocol in order to handle that client information, either when they retire or become disabled, or ultimately when they pass away.
Okay, so we're talking about attorneys, doctors, CPAs, financial planners, insurance agents or brokers. Uh, those are five right off the top of my head that I can think of that would have a lot of information that would need to be protected, clients that would need to be managed and maintained, practices that would have to be maintained, that kind of thing, in the event of a disability or a death.
Correct. Professionals with clients and confidentiality or medical records of are those types have a unique set of circumstances when it comes to not only their estate planning but their business planning and what happens after they're gone. So it's a little bit more than your general basic estate planning or general and basic business planning.
That's a really good point. So, when I hear sometimes from other attorneys or other folks that I deal with regularly, like CPAs and insurance, really all of these five professions that we discussed. Why do I need to have a special plan? Isn't my simple will or my trust sufficient? Why do I need something else?
Well, the easy answer is you may be required to have something further.
Oh,
As attorneys, we have ethical standards that we need to follow regarding our client confidentiality. Mental health professionals also have a similar requirement, same with doctors and CPAs when they're dealing with, again, confidential client information, uh, social security numbers, things like that. So your specific profession may have its own protocol or requirements that you need to follow when you're either winding up business or when you pass away, how your business and how that client information is retained, passed on, or uh, handled or destroyed.
that's really interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. So, I recently went through an experience. I lost my mom to cancer, and you actually prepared my parents' trust for them several years ago. So we had a really nice plan when she passed on how to handle all of their affairs and their estate. But I remember before my mom and dad put this plan together, we had had this discussion about why do they need to have a trust? Why do they need to have some of these plans? Well, and they had some unique assets and some unique things that just a trust was really the best way to go for them. And I remember having that conversation with them, and it really struck me as to how a lot of people just don't understand why they need to have a comprehensive plan that's really specific to them individually and to their, in this case, their professional business. Because, I know as an attorney and owner of multiple businesses, if something happened to me, I would need to make sure that something was in place to take care of our law firm and all of my other businesses. I'd need to have managers in place. And there's a whole host of issues. If I was in one of my other companies, if I was in a car accident and I couldn't manage that company, who would step in to manage that company? Um, we run into situations a lot where we've got solo practitioners, CPAs, insurance agents, attorneys, financial planners, a lot of them are often solo, not so much doctors, but what happens in that event if you're really running a business by yourself, like some of these professionals sometimes do? What kinds of things do they need to take into account?
One of the main things they need to take into account, and given where I've practiced, on the western slope of Colorado, I've been in small towns the majority of my career, and there's, especially in our field with attorneys, a lot of solo practitioners out there who maybe have one assistant and that's it. They've got a whole town's worth of information, and when they pass away, for example, if they don't have a plan in place where not only do they have an estate plan with their wills or trusts, but those wills and trusts need to have information in there as to who can manage the company, who can wind it down, what's going to
Mhm,
happen with the client confidential information in the sense of, are they following, in the attorney's example, the rules of ethical rules that we have regarding that client information. In many cases, having a plan helps avoid a mess, because when we do go through a probate, or administer any kind of estate after a professional has passed away, the business end of things is an extra component that needs to be addressed, whether or not, the family is aware of anything that's going on with the business. And a lot of times that is a big problem. Information, access to information, and just a general knowledge of what that professional was doing, how they ran their business, how they operated their business. Generally, there's no information because it was all in that person's head, or
mm,
they kept the information in a safe place, but they didn't tell anybody. Many times when we're doing an administration for professional, that assistant is key, because they generally have an idea of where the passwords
mhm,
were, who the landlord is, how do we access these things, where the storage unit key is. A lot of our older practitioners still have boxes and boxes of paper files that still have original
mhm,
documents that may or may not need to go back to clients, or they may need to be destroyed in a certain way. Not having that plan, or at least not having somebody who can step into, close down, manage, kind of run the show until you close things,
mhm.
really creates a mess, and it really creates a lot of additional work, additional headaches for your family or your business partner potentially. Um, Really, access and knowledge of information is key.
And we've seen some of this firsthand in some of the cases that we've dealt with personally, or that we've learned of, or have had knowledge of through other professionals that we work with. I remember I had a client years and years ago. Their attorney dropped out of a heart attack suddenly and
Mhm.
unexpectedly. He was a solo practitioner, and he was in the middle of putting together an estate plan for my clients. They weren't my clients at the time. They became my clients because they needed to get their plan finished, and they had some complex business issues and farm and ranch issues and things that had to be dealt with. And it was not a simple plan. And when we brought that into the firm, there was the other attorney who'd passed away was old school, had paper files, office was a mess. The bar association had to come in and take custody of all of his documents and client files, and they couldn't find what documents we were looking for. It was kind of a mess. We had to start over, honestly. And
Right.
and so that becomes a problem for the clients to think of. And that's one of the things that, as professionals, all professionals have to think about is, what effect will this have on my clients? It's not just your family.
Mhm.
If you're thinking of a traditional estate plan, you're thinking of your children, your spouse, your loved ones, any other friends and family that you want to include in that plan. But as professionals, we also have to think about how it will affect our team members, our
Mhm.
employees, our business partners, and our clients. So those are really key things. Tell me some of the things that we should have in place for addressing all of those issues.
Certainly, when it comes to business planning, whether you have multiple partners or you're solo or whatnot, your business documents, especially if you're in a partnership or you have multiple members in your entity or a corporation, your entity documents should include, the buy-sell agreements between the members or the partners or the shareholders. It should
Mhm,
address what happens when a member passes away or when a member becomes disabled, even.
mhm,
Those types of documents, such as a cross purchase agreement, buy sells, all help the business keep flowing. And when you have multiple people involved, it's a smoother process, certainly, because the other members can continue the business and the employees still are employed and everybody's still moving along. However, when you're looking at the solo or you're looking at a couple people who are involved, you have issues such as what happens to our employees? How do we, does the business continue? Does it terminate? If it terminates, who's in charge of terminating? Who's in charge of selling the assets, those types of things? And again, when you're dealing with confidential client information, you have to take further steps. Again, your own
mhm,
profession may have requirements that you need to follow, such as ours. We have to have an outside attorney who can come in. If we're, looking back to my days when I was a solo practitioner, had I
mhm,
been disabled, even we're not talking about death. Let's say I'm in a car accident and all of a sudden I'm in a coma. Well,
mhm,
we had to have plans in place that an outside attorney, usually a friend of yours, would step in, take over your cases, run your cases for you until you either
mhm,
healed and came back, or if you were permanently disabled and could no longer take then the transition plan that you needed to have in place would take over so that your
mhm,
clients were taken care of, so that there was minimal disruption to your client's case or their plan. You had somebody who was qualified, certainly very important, somebody
mhm,
qualified, another attorney who could step in and take over. Um,
mhm,
the other thing people in businesses and solo professionals need to consider is their employees. One recommendation we've talked about before: you have a separate life insurance policy set aside, designated solely to fund the winding down or the transition of your business.
mhm,
That way, your employee can continue to get paid while they help the professional power of attorney or whatever you want to call it, the person who can
mhm,
come in who's authorized to deal with your client information, to wind it down, to close your shop. Those
mhm,
are the things that we're looking for, that we want to have in place, both for disability and death, whether it's a big
mhm.
company, small company, solo company. Those plans need to be in place, ready to go. And somebody needs to know the plan. That's the
Somebody needs
key.
to know where the documents are. Somebody needs to know who to contact. Having just having a notebook or a policy in place that your employees can access in the event of an emergency. We actually saw that in our firm during COVID because there were so many people impacted, and we saw and heard from professionals all over the country in some of our different offices that we have, and different attorneys heard from a lot of their clients or their professionals and needed help immediately. I think we were crafting emergency plans and contingency plans almost daily during COVID because we saw professionals, and in particular in the health industry, professionals who were at the high risk areas on a continual basis, who were getting sick, had to be out for weeks or months at a time, depending on their health situation. And we were having to make sure that we were helping to get those plans in place, get all the documents in place. I think we were doing emergency powers of attorney for professionals um, very rapidly through that time. And it really put a strain and a stress on those businesses because they were having to react instead of being prepared. And it just created so much more chaos than it should have for those businesses if the plan had already been in place. I mean, we saw just one after another case like that, and then in some cases, death of professionals. And we ended up with multiple clients who ended up coming to our firm and simply because their attorneys were MIA. They were unreachable. Nobody knew what was happening. Turns out many of them were very sick with COVID. They had no way to respond. But we actually experienced that directly. And clients were coming to us in a panic because they had cases that had to continue and had to keep going. So we've seen firsthand how not having a plan in place really can just turn places upside down. So I think the
It's
go ahead.
that's absolutely correct. The commingling, if you will, of your business plan and your estate plan for professionals is essential,
Mhm,
because those plans they have to overlap in some way. When we're dealing with professionals and dealing with their estate plans, whether I'm doing another attorney's will or trust, or I'm helping doctors, whatever, part of the business plan, it goes into that estate plan. Again, to use the attorney example because it's easy for us, if our will states, Joe Schmo is authorized, this attorney is authorized to come in and work with the personal representative regarding my business.
mhm,
That way there's court authority for Joe Schmo to step in and run the law firm, to close it down, to transfer clients to other attorneys, to at least tell
mhm,
clients, hey, attorney X passed away, or attorney X is disabled and is no longer to be able to work. This is what's going on. This is what we're going to do with your file. Let us,
mhm,
that kind of coordination is essential because, one,
mhm.
even though as an attorney I may be dead, I still have a duty to my clients in some way to be prepared.
Right.
And whether you're a doctor, CPA, therapist, we all have information regarding our clients that is highly sensitive, and we need to effectuate a plan so that that information is protected and transferred the way it needs to be, respective of our individual professions and the rules therein.
Mhm,
Um, Otherwise, we're leaving an additional mess. And in talking to Attorney Regulation Council attorneys who have to step in when an attorney passes away,
mhm,
it's not a fun job. It's a lot of work.
mhm.
And there's volunteer, people are volunteers. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. And what we really try to convey to our clients, whether they're business professionals or just, regular people on the street, don't leave a mess for the next people. Do everything you can to make it easy. And that, again, we can't emphasize this enough. Knowledge of information, where that information is, so
Mhm,
that whoever has to step in, whether it's a notebook, they can get the book and they know, okay, I need to call this person about this person about that. And it streamlines the process and really helps uh,
mhm.
prevent a mess. And more importantly, it helps prevent additional cost and additional time.
Well, and having recently gone through this personally with my mom, um, it, you're in the worst moment of your life as the child or the heir, because you've lost someone you care very, very much about, and you're grieving. I knew that we were prepared. We knew this was coming, but I had no idea the level of grief that I would be going through personally. And my dad and my sister, it was an incredibly, incredibly difficult time for me, as you know, because you
Mhm.
walked through it with me. And honestly, if I hadn't had you to lean on during that time, it would have been much, much harder.
Yeah.
And we had the trust to fall back on. We had the trust to follow. We had all their instructions. We had on the small business interests that they had. It was very simple because the plan had already, it transferred and everything just went very, very smooth. There was no issues there. We had a few hiccups with a few outside entities that, you just
Which
happens,
always happens.
always happens. There's always a bank that just, you've got people who don't know what they're doing, or they just want to try to make your life miserable. Or, or some other hiccup, a county clerk and recorder that forgets to record something, or misfiles something. There's always a little hiccup, but um, just having that plan in place made it easier, and I was able to just to grieve even though I was having to go through this, and it was I didn't even know what to expect having to do, because I was the trustee for my mom, so I had to do all of that work. Now my sister didn't have to do any of those things, and she was so grateful that it was all there because she just was allowed to grieve, and
Right.
she didn't have to go through anything. She knew I was taking care of it, but, um, I guess the point is it's a really hard time. So the easier we can make it, the better.
Mm. And on to correlate to that whole system, right, while you were going through it, to use you as an example again,
Yeah.
we internally had a plan. It wasn't, a death or disability. It was we had a plan to help
True.
step in, so that you could grieve and do the things that were really important at that time. We,
Mhm.
as the attorneys in the firm, we all had a plan. We knew we could step in, we could help alleviate that pressure for you so that you can focus on the important things. And that
Mhm.
is it's the little things like that that we just don't think about. And
Mhm.
frankly, we need to, especially because it alleviates pressure. It really
Yeah.
does. It alleviates a lot of stress in a very stressful time because, if we take that a step further and it's you passing away or me passing away, now it
Mhm.
affects, not only are our families going through a tremendous amount of grief, they don't know anything about a law firm.
Right.
Being prepared, you know, having that plan
Mhm.
alleviates that pressure, and it allows somebody else who knows what to do to come in and take that burden away from the family. And at least, by putting that person in place, they're going to do the job they're supposed to do in accordance with whatever rules or requirements we have.
Mhm.
My wife is not trying to do that. Your husband's not trying to do that.
My
Or
husband
my
doesn't wanna
kid.
touch it.
Yeah, right. My my kid, I couldn't pry him away from a video game long enough anyway. So those are the types of things that really, as a professional, because whether you're a professional or not, you need to have
Mhm.
a plan.
Oh, yeah.
We have an infinite amount of possibilities to become disabled. We do. We're going to only die once, but we can become, disabled and unable to perform or whatever. You have your options, right?
Yeah.
So being prepared, having a plan for your business, and again, not to harp on this, making sure your clients' information and your clients are taken care of
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
things that professionals have to think about, uh, because it is your responsibility. It is part of being a doctor or a
Mhm.
therapist or a CPA, your clients. It's part of
Mhm.
that plan. And so having a succession plan in place for your business that correlates well with your estate plan, again, whether you're a solo or whether you're in a group, whatever, you adjust the plan accordingly. Having that plan is going to reduce stress, relieve pressure, and make things easier on the people that are cleaning up for you.
Yeah, and to go back, when I lost my mom, there was a period of time where I had to be out of the office. I was gone for a couple of months actually, and you're right, I wasn't disabled personally, but it had a tremendous effect on our firm and our clients, and so we knew this was coming. We were able to
Mhm.
prepare for it. So we had a plan in place, and thanks to you and the other people in our firm and our team, we had a great plan. Our clients knew what was happening and why I was out. Our clients were taken care of, my clients were taken care of. It really went smooth, and to be honest, I look back at that time and I just with gratitude, pure gratitude and appreciation for the ability to plan ahead and make sure that our firm continued to run smoothly and the clients were taken care of. I mean, I can't imagine. I had a friend, I've had a friend, a couple of friends, solo attorneys that had some similar situations where they lost loved ones or had some tragic things happen in their families that they were the only ones that could take care of. And they didn't have a team. They were solo, they were by themselves. They didn't even have
Mhm.
staff. And, that for them, um, two of them had to just close down their practice,
Mhm.
and they didn't have any other choice because they didn't have help. And so their clients had to go somewhere else. Um, not having that plan, I think really it can have a drastic effect on somebody, not only just on the clients, but in your business, but you could lose your livelihood. Then what?
You
You
certainly
come up
can.
for air when it's done. And I know some of those attorneys have had to go into a different jobs or take in-house positions or take associate positions at other firms or had to start from scratch with their clients and start building a law firm again.
Mhm.
um, that just makes what you're going through doubly hard. So we've seen a lot. We've
Mhm.
even we even have seen examples where solo attorneys past didn't have designated people to come in, and because of the rules for confidentiality and for the finances and the money, client finances, client money, trust accounts,
Mhm.
operating account monies, there's all kinds of rules for professionals when you start
Right.
going into the money and the finances.
Exactly.
And we have had some experience where heirs, children of those deceased professionals had to go to the deal with the unclaimed property,
Mhm.
where funds have been turned over to the state because there was no process in place. And oh wow, talk about red tape. I mean that they can be resolved, but the cost, having to hire lawyers to deal with that
Right.
and fight that just to have what's rightfully yours turned over to you. Earned monies, profits that were sitting in an operating bank account for a deceased attorney. They were earned fees.
Mhm.
They rightfully should have been passed on to the heirs as profits of the law firm. Instead, they were turned over to the state as unclaimed.
Mhm.
That you don't want that to happen. I don't want that to
No,
happen.
not at all. And certainly when you get into business financial issues, especially,
Yeah.
on our end where we're holding
Mhm.
client money. It's not business money. It's client money
No.
that's being held.
Yeah,
You're dealing with
exactly.
you're dealing with so much more than grandpa's bank account.
Yep.
And you're dealing with so much more than just, grandma's records. These are
Mhm.
special records that require additional
Mhm.
care, for lack of a better
Right.
term, and responsibility. So again, having that plan again alleviates pressure on people who may not know
Mhm.
what they're doing specifically in regards to your specific professional requirements.
So we know what we need to do and why we need to do it. So how do we get started? What steps do we need to take? How do we make this happen?
Come talk to us. Find a find a an attorney who, has experience in this.
Mhm.
We deal with a lot of professionals. That's kind of one of the areas that we come in. We have a lot of just traditional clients, but we do have a lot of professionals because they know we've done this and we can handle
Mhm.
these types of planning. Meeting with the attorney to go through your specific needs, both on the estate planning side and the business side. Working with the attorney. If you're a therapist, I know in Colorado and in every other state, mental health providers have specific requirements on.
Mhm.
They may be required to have a succession plan. They may be required,
Mhm.
just depending on the state. I know Colorado does require plans be in place for mental health providers regarding their files and their clients. We incorporate those plans into their estate plan, whether it's, a
Mhm.
power of attorney specifically for a professional only in the business, side of things, not their personal
Mhm.
finance, spouse can still do
Sure.
that. Um, we incorporate specific provisions into wills as far as, hey, the personal representative is going to hire this person, or if that person's not available, another professional to come in and deal with the therapy business, closing it down. Those types of plans that correlate the business transition are essential. We can help craft those plans by sitting down,
Mhm.
going through with our clients what they need, because every plan is going to be different. Again, if you're in a bigger company, the plan's a little different. There you need more internal structure. Where if you're a solo, you need that full on plan,
Yeah.
that you need to paint that picture for the person who's going to help. Um, we sit down, we craft those plans with our clients, and then the other key is making that information available to the person who needs to know it.
Mhm.
If you are a solo, but you have that administrative assistant or that manager, make sure they know everything, just in case. Because if
Mhm.
I'm an attorney who's coming in to help close down another law firm, I'm not going to know anything. And by being able to work with that manager, okay,
Mhm.
they can get me the information I need to do the job that the other attorney trusted me to do.
Mhm.
And, again, going back to having that additional life insurance policy to help pay that money, through the estate is used to pay your manager to help close things down. So they're not just, it's a hard time for that manager too. They've lost their job effectively, but by having that additional funds, we can continue to, pay that manager to help close down the shop while they look for another job too. Um,
Mhm.
but that type of thing really helps me as the attorney coming into the professional's business. If there's a structure and plan in place, and they hand me a book and say everything you need to know is here, that helps so much. I can do my job a lot easier and more
Mhm.
efficiently with the information. So sitting down with an attorney to help craft these plans is essential. But the next step is somebody else has to know the information. Somebody else has to have access. Someone you trust. That's a big component. Um, but having that other person who knows what the information is, where it is essential.
Okay. So there's a lot of great estate planning attorneys out there,
Mhm.
but not everybody has experience with these unique issues. And we have seen, and we have had clients come to us years later to get plans updated from somebody that may have previously done their plan but didn't really have the specific knowledge or understanding of how to implement the professional's requirements for their job or their regulation or any of their overseeing agencies requirements for their licenses or things like that for client files, confidential information. And so then we end up having to go back and really kind of almost redo the plan because it didn't effectively cover what it needed to cover. And then on the business side, we see clients come in, professionals come in who've
Mhm.
never, they have a will or a trust in place, and that's fine. It handles their personal side, but it doesn't
Right.
effectively help on their business side. And
Mhm.
so then we end up having to, redo some things or add to what they have already. And in some cases, what they have will work for their personal. We just need to add the business side.
Right.
And that's often the case as well. We do see
Mhm.
that. We do see that quite a bit because there are a number of fantastic estate planning attorneys out there. So if
Yes.
you already have a plan, great job. You are already way ahead of the game here. So the next thing you need is just let's take an evaluation, have an attorney
Mhm.
evaluate whether you've got all of the right documents and policies and plans in place and insurance and all of those components for your business and also your professional compliance. So lots of things to think about. Again, we're talking about therapists, attorneys, doctors, CPAs, financial planners, insurance agents and brokers, and other professions that have unique and specific things that need to be considered in their planning.